Welcome back, our co-hosts from the first half hour. That would include the Admiral Bill Stubblefield. Billy, good morning to you.
Good morning, Rob. Great to be here.
The Badger, Michael Heights.
Good morning.
Who had reversed the process by pummeling Bill in the pregame today.
Yeah, and man, I am blooded. I may just back off in my corner and be quiet the whole morning.
Bonnie don't believe any of this.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good point.
If anyone would know it's not true, that would be Bonnie.
Bonnie would know. She would know. Yeah. Let's say good morning to Michael Carl. Good morning, Michael, longest tenured member of our crew.
Good morning. Great to be here.
So I understand the Badger was at the Thursday breakfast, and he did get you to scream at some point.
Not me.
No?
Somebody did.
He may have gotten
Probably
rather
Norwood.
boisterous.
Norwood.
Norwood was in Maine, though, Mike.
Oh, well.
Wasn't Norwood then.
No, it was absolutely the Admiral.
It might have been me.
Yeah. Now that you bring it up.
Yeah, he is at the back end with you there, Bill. Also, attorney at law Lauren Schultz.
Great to be here this morning.
Pull that a little closer to you there, Larry.
Sure.
Excellent.
Seldom that people ask me to speak up or move the mic closer.
Via telephone, Joseph Ferretti, Joey Torts, good morning to you.
Good morning. I have to ask how bad the indigestion becomes at those breakfasts.
We don't have time, Joe. We're too loud. Spend too much time screaming at each other to eat.
Sounds like a fun breakfast.
No, we have.
Yeah.
No, it is a fun time. We do have a difference of opinion, but we're always very courteous. There's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of smiles. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun time.
It is a good group.
Plus, given the age, the general age, average age, they all eat oatmeal. So
That's what Mike Height accused us of doing. The first time he joined us, he looked around the table and said, "Where's all the oatmeal?"
There wasn't enough oatmeal?
Well, that's why I go. I feel so young when I go there.
Oh, mercy. Our first topic of the day goes to our leadoff hitter, Joe Ferretti. Joe, you are on the clock.
Rob, I'm always looking for issues that really deal with matters in West Virginia. And just a week ago, the state school board for the West Virginia and the SSAC kind of got together and decided that we are now going to allow high school athletes in the state of West Virginia to be paid money for their name, image, and likeness, or what we refer to as NIL. Now, this is a wave that's developing across the country. I think West Virginia is now the 44th state that allows high school athletes to cash in on their NIL. And I'm wondering, as we go forward with this brave new world in high school athletics, what we think the impact is going to be. What are some of the advantages of these high school athletes actually getting paid? And what are some of the concerns that may develop as we go forward? The athlete that came to mind right away when I saw this recent development was Randy Moss, who I think we all agree is probably the most talented athlete to ever play high school sports in the state of West Virginia. Went on to be inducted into the Collegiate and NFL Hall of Fame. As a high school athlete in DuPont High School, just outside of Kanawha County, he lived in a little town called Rand, R-A-N-D, West Virginia. And his high school athletic career, of course, is famous. It's something that he excelled both in football and basketball and track. But he also had his legal troubles and behavioral issues. And it culminated in him losing a scholarship to Notre Dame, losing a scholarship then to Florida State before he ever took a snap in college football. He got wrapped up in a fight in his high school that resulted in an individual being hospitalized. He was charged criminally for that. Notre Dame yanked the scholarship. When he tested positive for marijuana in his system, Florida State yanked his scholarship. And that's how he eventually got over to Marshall University, where he excelled there and was one of the Heisman finalists in his senior season. But looking at Randy Moss, and if you read his book, if you look at the reports about him when he was in high school, he will admit he was immature, he was ill-equipped to handle the fame and fortune of being a high school athlete that was celebrated across the country. He just wasn't ready. And his conduct and his problems that followed him was evidence of that. So I'm wondering if a Randy Moss came through the high school system again in West Virginia, and he was presented with a contract that paid him, $350,000, $400,000, $500,000, what kind of problems or issues a Randy Moss might have if that ever was to occur. And I look at the situation locally. I know we don't have a Randy Moss in every high school, but we do have high school athletes across the country who are now getting contracts, $10,000, $25,000 from a burger joint. We have athletes in North Carolina. A high school junior quarterback just signed a $1 million contract. So the money's out there, and I'm afraid the problems are going to be too. So there's a lot of issues to discuss here in terms of the regulations and what's going to happen, what's going to develop with agents, marketing people representing these folks. They're going to be all over social media now soliciting contracts. Colin tells me that local high school athletes already in the Eastern Panhandle are on social media indicating, hey, I'm out here. Anybody want to give me some money? So I think going forward, there's a lot of concerns that are going to be raised here. And my question this morning is, what are your concerns about this new age of paying high school athletes, having them be sponsored by local businesses, local benefactors? Are you concerned? Is it going to upset the balance of sports in West Virginia with the lenient transfer rules that are now in place? Another issue that we have to talk about. I think going forward, there are a lot of pitfalls here, and I think the SSAC and the State Board of Ed has to be on their toes about this. But as a panel this morning, what do we think?
Joe, we had name, image, and likeness when we were in high school playing ball. It was called getting a job, and your name, image, and likeness had better show up right after school ended or before practice or after practice. That's how NIL worked back in our day.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Mine was at Lennox Arco on Brownsville Road in Carrick. That was a section of the city of Pittsburgh where I pumped gasoline for $2.90 an hour until they raised the minimum wage to $3.10. I'm happy to get those $45 before taxes. Took the money out, knocked it down to about $32 on that check. We're talking about a lot more money now and not having to pump gas to get it. Let's begin first with the attorneys in the room. Larry Schultz, I want to go to you, number one.
Yeah, just to give the same sort of history, I baled hay, waited tables, and did landscaping work. So a very glamorous entree to my deciding to go get an education so I didn't have to do that anymore. I think it's going to be troubling, not at the time, though there's a lot of danger of that, but it'll be troubling for these student athletes in their later development, because if you're being paid not just tuition to go to college, but paid money on top of that, then, yeah, I suppose there's an incentive so you don't lose the $1 million nil deal to, go to class once in a while and actually take the tests and pass the classes. That seems to be softening a little bit with all athletes in college to some extent. And I'm not so sure that the rigor of the universities even is moving forward. But imagine being a 11th grade math teacher, and by the grade you give this student athlete on his math test, he might lose $1 million. Well,
at least he'll be able to count how much he lost.
Yeah. He might not be able to get, to go forward. And I suspect, and I don't have any evidence of this directly, but I suspect all over this country for a long time, that math teacher's been giving out B's in place of D's with a fair bit of regularity. Not all the math teachers, but there are instances where kids haven't done the work, but they get a passing grade because, after all, we don't want to mess up their football career. That's about to get, to me, it's seemingly 100 times worse. And if there's a business person who is also not very scrupulous, you can't blame a 16-year-old faced with $100,000 or $1 million. But if there's an older person whose values are no better and they have a lot of money, now you're setting up a real problem, it seems, going forward. I think that's a terrible idea.
Mr. Carl.
Well, as a traditionalist and older person, I have a real problem with this. Anytime you introduce the prospect of getting money into something as otherwise honest and naive as high school sports, then you're almost inherently corrupting it, and the bad actions will just multiply again and again and again, and so it's a horrible idea.
Bill.
Yeah, the SSC has been criticized a great deal on this, but I question if they had any choice at all. Using the NCAA as a model, NCAA ignored the NIL for quite a while. Then when they finally had to recognize the NIL, they tried to push back. When that did not work, it got in the court system, they were way behind the 8 ball, and I don't think the NCAA has really fully caught up until perhaps the last year or so with the concept of NIL. What's happening in West Virginia at SSC, they're trying to get ahead of what the inevitable is going to happen. The courts are going to drive them into this, as it did at the college level. The courts got involved, and courts said you will do that. So the West Virginia SSC has written some fairly stringent, fairly tight regulations of what can or cannot be done. It's going to be put in. It's going to be, I think, it's going to reduce the impact of this NIL as much as it can be, keeping in mind it's going to happen thanks to the court system. So the SSC is trying to get ahead of the curve. Now, I've heard a couple of comments made statewide that this will work as long as the legislators don't get involved. One of the concerns is that the legislators will torque what is a fairly stringent set of rules to a more liberal interpretation. Now, if that's going to happen, I have no idea, but that is one of the concerns. But my view at this point in time is, let's not criticize. I'm not a big fan of WVSSC, but I am supportive of what they're trying to do right now to try to get ahead of what has been a snowball effect in other states that gets totally out of control before rules and regulations are put into place.
West Virginia is the 44th state
Yes.
to permit it, so it's not like it's West Virginia setting the trend here. Mike Kite, before you go, I'll say that there are some restrictions. Athletes cannot use their school affiliation, logos, uniforms, etc., in NIL deals. Coaches, booster clubs, and other school-affiliated personnel cannot use NIL opportunities to entice athletes to attend a specific school. Athletes are prohibited from endorsing certain products like alcohol, cannabis, prescription drugs, weapons, etc. And athletes are encouraged to consult with the SSC's Director of Compliance to ensure deals comply with regulations and maintain athletic eligibility. And remember, if you do get NIL money, you do have to pay taxes on it, and that's probably going to end up being 2 times the Social Security tax, because you're probably not going to be an employee of somebody else when you're getting it. Mr. Height.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll follow all those rules as well. This is
Badger sounds skeptical.
this is bad. This was bad when they did it on the college level. This is even worse doing it on the high school level. It's like Randy Moss said himself. I was not mature enough for what was going on in my life at that time, and now you're going to throw all this money in on top of it, and they're just not mature enough to handle that kind of money at that age. you can look at kids in Hollywood and see how messed up their lives are when they start getting that kind of money at a young age. And then you look at all the adults around them who take advantage of them, who steal from them, their family, their friends. Not to mention the fact that it sort of destroys the whole team atmosphere within the sport that they're in, because now they're getting paid, but the lineman that's blocking for them isn't getting paid. The other skill players around them aren't getting paid, and it builds up this jealousy within a team and sort of breaks it down. This is just a bad idea on so many levels. It was bad at the college level. Again, it's really bad at the high school level. And to think for a second that teams aren't going to recruit and use NIL money to get them on certain high school teams is you are out of your mind if you think that's not going to happen.
If I can, Mike is exactly right on so many points. I was not saying it's a good idea. I was saying the court system is going to make us do that regardless. And this may well be my last performance on the show, because Mike Hornby has just posted disagreeing with everything I said. And so he's probably going to give me the axe, so I'm out of here.
I got you covered, Billy. I got you covered. So, question for our attorneys in the room and on the telephone here. Contract law in this country requires a minor to have an adult sign the contract with them. So most high school athletes are below the age of 18. So the parents have to be involved in this contractually, and that's by law, correct? Attorneys in the room and on the phone?
I think that's
or guardian.
As a general matter, that is
generally
correct.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And sometimes that will be 100% an improvement of the situation, and sometimes that will be 100% an absolute destruction of the situation.
Well, and that's unless they're an emancipated minor. Now, how many of them are going to try to get emancipated if there's this kind of money involved and we don't want to share it with mom and dad?
There are a variety of things, and that is the one thing that makes this different from college. Most college athletes, very few, are not 18 when they get these deals.
Sure.
But high school athletes will be, by definition, underage minors. And in some families, it will make very little difference because the parents are good people and they are most interested in the benefit to their child, and they will work something out. The other thing that occurs to me as we discuss this is on the transfer question. If a kid's getting $1 million from one county high school, well, then he can move to put his parents in a fabulous house in another part of the county. And to the nil provider, it may not matter as long as the business that is supplying the money is operating in both parts of the county. So, there's going to be an awful lot of transfers and there's already, even without nil, there's a lot of transfers and other things that cause people to raise questions.
And if they are minors at the time, whose money is it legally? Whose money is it? Is it the parents' money? Is it or is it their money, and does it have to be put into a trust?
It is their money, but there's only certain things they can do with it, I think would be the best way to say it.
It is the minor's money. Is what
it
you're
is
saying.
the minor's money.
But who controls it?
Oh, the parents generally will control it. Just like the parents will be liable for the bills if the kid has no nil and he's causing all kinds of damage to stuff.
Yeah.
The parents are going to be the ones who have to pay. So that is a sort of a legal two-way street, you might say.
Yep.
Yeah.
This Joe, this is a great point to bring up, because this kind of goes on already in a different form, and I'll tell you what I mean by this. So the feeder program where I coach, I'm actually wearing the shirt here today too at Oakdale. The youth program is also an Oakdale youth program. Well, what routinely happens is when you get to the 8th grade championship games, the private schools are at these games picking off your best players. Now, not every parent can afford the private school tuition of a top-notch school in the Washington, D.C. area, which can be very, very pricey, okay? So it is, don't worry about it, we'll scholarship in some form your kid. You'll pay a very small reduced amount. So let's say tuition is $20,000 a year. Parents end up having to pay maybe $2,000. So you're getting $18,000 off of a private school education. So it kind of works that way already, and it's pretty disgusting anyway because this is going on. We're recruiting 8th graders, and the recruiting starts earlier than that to go to my private school for sports. So you kind of have it already.
Yeah,
right? It's not
right.
money in your pocket so much, but it's a private school education, which can lead to a lot of money in your pocket.
The donation is made by the wealthy person to the school for the purpose of providing scholarships to top athletes so they can build the quality of their sports team.
Right. Joe, you've been quiet too long.
Yeah, well, Robin, I was most interested in your perspective on this since you are coaching right now high school athletes, and I know in discussions with you that you've had high school athletes that have been very talented, have gone on to Division I to play Division I college football. So you deal with these kids on a daily basis and the concerns they have with girlfriends, grades, maybe home life issues, and now we're going to interject tidy sums of money into the equation here. I'm just wondering how you think that's going to complicate matters for you as a high school coach.
It's already when you're coaching a kid who's a senior, who's a Division I, who's about to walk into 6 figures of NIL money. That's already difficult because, they have incentive to listen to you because to get the scholarship they got to graduate from high school, right? So
yeah,
but ultimately these kids have a leg up because in about 3 months, because most of them leave in December now, in 3 months they're going to make more money in about a week than you've made in the last couple of years, right?
Yeah.
So it changes the relationship a little bit from that perspective, and it can become difficult to coach kids who are in that range of talent because about the money they're about to walk into. At the high school level, and I don't know if you have to wait to be a senior to get NIL money, if you can get it when you're a 9th grader. I don't have a clue of the technical problem, how that's going to work, Joe. I don't know if you have any more clarification.
I can tell you, Rob, I ran across an article about North Carolina high school sports. There are sophomores and juniors in high school football getting contracts.
Yeah.
Now they're small. They're maybe $10,000, $15,000 from a burger joint or something like that, but it's reaching down into the underclassmen. And so these kids are going to be paid for a couple of years while they're still matriculating at a high school.
Yeah, I don't understand the benefit to the business. The kid can't use the high school uniform. I don't know how it helps, other than maybe it keeps the kid at the school. If you're big into your local high school being really good at football, I guess it could help keep the kid at school there. But otherwise, I don't see what the benefit to the business is because the kid can't associate with the business in his uniform.
That's one of the points that the SSC has made, that it's not, and the stringent rules they have reduces the benefits to the businesses with the hope that it will not be picked up on. So, yeah, it's not a real advantage to the businesses right now.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, I don't think this is a cultural issue. I don't think this is a management issue. I think it's a pure, simple legal issue that the state has no choice because if they don't do it on their own, it's going to be forced down their throat by the legal system.
Joe, final minute is yours.
Well, look, there's some advantages to this. In basketball, soccer, those kind of sports, there are travel teams, and those cost money to play on. And if a young athlete can accumulate a little bit of money, that may open some doors in terms of their ability to play their sport even beyond the high school arena. But bottom line is, I think we're at risk here for abuse and misuse. Mike Height raised a lot of the concerns that I have about this. Young people with money, it can be a toxic mix. Look at Britney Spears and all the issues she had.
5 seconds,
with her family and her father. I just think we got a lot of risk going forward.
Yeah, it's going to make super private schools even more super private schools, I guess. Top of the hour break coming up. This is Talk Radio, WNR Martinsburg and TV10. Bill Stubblefield's on the clock. Also because his sponsorship occurred before he actually came on the program, I'll go to Joe Ferretti now to actually read the sponsorship for the Mansion Ferretti Law Offices, although I think you have it memorized by now, Joe.
Pretty much, Rob, but I appreciate the opportunity. Mansion Ferretti is located in downtown Martinsburg at 201 East John Street, and we're there daily answering questions about insurance claims, personal injury, automobile accidents, If you have something like that, unfortunately, going on in your life, you can give us a call at 304-264-8505 or visit us on the web at wvjusticelawyers.com.
Yeah, to end the NIL discussion, a point I probably should have made in the last half hour was because of social media, all of these kids in high school have the opportunity to make a boatload of money on social media. There's a couple of brothers in Frederick, Maryland, who drive Lamborghinis because of the videos that they post on social media. They get so many followers and views that they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. There's no restriction on that while you're going to high school, right? So,
No.
Right? You know, it's another way of making money. All right, issue number 2. Bill Stubblefield is on the clock. Admiral, have at it.
Rob, this past week, the governor said he's going to be selling 4 rural hospitals. There are currently 7 state-owned healthcare facilities that are specialized in long-term care for seniors. The selling price was $60 million to a group out of New York who owns 55 properties that caters to this type of businesses. Currently, these 4 facilities have 500 licensed beds, operate at about a $6 million annual loss that the state picks up. Projected cost to is projected to be over $40 million in the next year or so. They need about $100 million of upgrade. In addition, West Virginia spends around $11 million on nursing, contract nursing for these facilities. The governor's made the point that this group out of New York is the best candidate to purchase and invest in facilities. The sale will close on the end of September, and it will remove the inefficiencies in the state government and questions about should the state be operating hospitals. The flip side is none of the local delegates were aware of this, or representatives. They were caught by surprise. They heard about it at the same time everybody else. Some of the questions they're raising was it put out to bid, or is this a single contract between the governor and this particular company? Did anybody else have a chance to bid on it? Was $60 million a fair price? Are the number of beds going to be preserved? Is there any guarantee that the number of beds will be preserved? My question to my distinguished colleagues are twofold. Is this a good deal for the state? The second question is, did the governor handle this correctly?
I want to start with Delegate Michael Haidt first to find out if what Mr. Stubblefield said is accurate.
Yeah, what he's saying is accurate. The state loses money on these hospitals. The deferred maintenance on these hospitals is atrocious. Many of them 100 years old. Whole sections of them shut down because they're not fit to house individuals. They have these exorbitant budgets with maybe 40 or 50 clientele people in there, and for the legislators to say they were blindsided by this, I'm a little taken aback by that, because we don't have one here in our area, and I've known about this the entire time I've been in the legislature, that they have been trying to sell these hospitals. And why are they trying to sell them? Because we lose money at it, because we are government and we should not be in the hospital business. We're not good at it. And these places do not provide high quality care. So, did Governor Morrissey do this as a backroom deal? Did he get a good deal? Whatever? No, none of that is true. We have been trying to sell these hospitals for some time. We've been out. There was no bidding process. It was us out as a government recruiting people to come in and try to buy these. So the fact that he found an organization that was willing to pay $60 million for these 4 hospitals, I would say kudos to him, because, I can remember 4 or 5 years ago hearing that we were willing to sell them for $1. But we didn't. But we're still losing money hand over fist when it comes to them. I would much rather see things like this in government privatized, and they become more efficient when that happens. The private company will come in and probably build new facilities and tear down the 100-year-old facilities that are just not feasible anymore. So I think this is a good thing. As for the legislators that said they didn't know about it, yeah, I don't know where you've been, because this is old news.
Rob, let me add another part of my question that I forgot to ask that I think is important. Part of this deal, I understand, is certificate of need, and the company bought these hospitals with the understanding they will preserve the certificate of need. The governor recently tried to get rid of repeal certificate of need. I wonder if this is going to change the dynamics at all.
No, I don't think so. I mean, they bought their certificate of need with it, so, which means they are not going to have any competition in those areas anytime soon. But I don't think that changes the governor's desire to do away with certificate of need altogether. And if the company came in here and bought that, they should know that he wants to get rid of certificate of need, and that's a possibility.
Mike Carl.
Well, this is a strong example of the problems with the mixing free enterprise capitalism with, but sort of breaking the principles that relies on with somebody, evolving belief in the need, for public service, and it just shows you how chaotic and out of control things are when you leave the free enterprise private sector concept, and you undermine it with evolving view of public needs. It's just just another example of the trouble with mixing those things.
You're not a fan of state-owned businesses, is what you're saying.
That's right.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not.
Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, 75. These are nursing homes. They're long-term care facilities. They keep calling various names, call them hospitals, and maybe in one day in the past 100 years they were, but they're not anymore. They're nursing homes, and we know that 75% of nursing home beds in West Virginia are paid for by Medicaid. And of course, one of the things that could very well happen as a result of recent legislation by the Congress, signed by President Trump, is that nursing homes could face extreme financial crises due to Medicaid cuts. We've heard sort of talk from certain elected officials that, oh, no, we're not going to cut the Medicaid to these nursing homes. But I think it is coming. I think if these were up, running, viable, really good locations, they would have been worth a lot more than $60 million. And I'm not necessarily saying that the state of West Virginia should run nursing homes. After all, I've had a pretty close look at some other things that they've run, like the schools and the highways, and I'm not sure I necessarily want to trust them to run that. So I'm not pushing back on that part of it. I am saying that it will be a lot easier for this group to shut some of these homes down than it would have been for the state government. Even if they're badly run and they're run down, and there's the people who live in those areas, they aren't going to have another nearby place available to them. So if those places shut down, the state has not only ducked that cost, it's also ducked the Medicare percentage, or Medicaid percentage, that they would have to pay toward the ongoing thing. Because even once they sell the nursing homes, the losses, in a sense, will continue for the state government, because they'll still be paying their 10 or 20 or whatever it is % of the Medicaid money in that's supporting these businesses. I hope they can keep them open. It doesn't. It seems like quite a gamble, and maybe because they got it relatively cheap. Those $60 million is hard to call that cheap, But, maybe since they got them relatively cheap, they think there's a way they can make it work.
Joe Ferretti.
Larry, I agree with you 100%. This company has basically put forth a $60 million bet that they can get one or two of these 4 hospitals they acquired to be eventually become profitable. That's what this is all about. The price tells you everything about this arrangement between the state and this private company. That it's a bet that they're going to make, and they're going to see if they can make it go. And if it doesn't go for them, if Medicaid dollars dry up and they can't make a buck in West Virginia, they're going to close them. So that's the downside of this, is that the state now has no control on at least keeping those 4 hospitals open. Now, on the other side of the coin, though, was a very difficult problem. These hospitals are dilapidated. They needed millions and millions of dollars of updating. And we know there were problems there at these nursing homes. We just had that situation with that poor nonverbal resident was basically boiled alive when he was put into a whirlpool tub, and the temperature gauge malfunctioned and no one checked on him, and he died. Horrible situation. That occurred in one of these state-run nursing homes. So the writing was on the wall for the state of West Virginia that this was going to be a large investment that the state probably could not stomach to get these hospitals in the kind of shape that they could provide the services that the elderly require. And so I don't know if the state had any choice. It looks like a white horse has come in to try to save the day, but how long that horse is going to run is another question.
Back to you, Bill.
Yeah, philosophical differences. Should the state be involved in the nursing home business? Mike Height has been very articulate in saying they should not be. This is to the eyes of the beholder. I don't know about the other 3 hospitals or nursing homes. So if are they going to be shopped out as well? Have not heard anything about that.
Well, those are psych hospitals. So
they are
I
psych.
doubt,
So
I
they're
doubt
different.
very seriously.
They're different.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right, issue number 3, we go to the Badger, Michael Height.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the crackdown on crime in D.C. And there's been a lot of talk lately about
And Mike,
Trump.
before you get into that too much further, this just flashed. D.C. has decided to sue President Trump over the federal takeover of the police force.
That's great. That's interesting. So there's the Trump administration says there's rampant crime in D.C., that it's out of control, and that something needs to be done, and that the current administration, the mayor and city council, are not handling it properly, and therefore something else needs to be done. And he's going to bring in troops to the National Guard to help assist the police in cleaning up the crime in D.C. There's also been evidence that the Metro Police Department, which is where you see all the statistics come from, they're not FBI statistics, but Metro Police Department statistics, saying that crime is going down. But there's also evidence that a few people have been fixing the books or cooking the books per se to make it look like crime's going down, and so there's evidence of that going on. So in the end, my question to the panel is the president's action, is this administration's action constitutional? Is it legal for him to do what he's doing right now?
Joe Ferretti, we begin with you.
Excuse me. Well, I'll let me address this, your question head on, which is the constitutionality of this. I would argue it's not. We have a law dating back to the late 1700s. Posse comitatus has been on the books forever, recently updated in 2022 by a Republican Congress. And what the law specifies is that it is unconstitutional for the federal government to employ federal military personnel to police domestically. And you can understand why. We're not Venezuela. We're not Argentina. We don't have the government putting military personnel into the streets to enforce the law. That's what we have sheriffs and municipal police to do. Now, D.C. is a separate case. There is a home rule law in D.C., which because of the District of Columbia, and it's not a state yet, the federal government does have a role in terms of policing in the District of Columbia. So under this law, the specific home rule law for D.C., the federal government is allowed to surge into the streets of D.C., National Guardsmen, to help enforce the law in D.C. And there's a requirement under the law, 30 days. The president has to go before Congress and ask for an extension. And President Trump's already signaling he's going to do that. So that's the constitutionality of this. But where my concern lies is there's already talk that this is going to happen in other U.S. cities. We know it happened on a very limited basis in L.A. Now we're talking about Chicago and other places. And I think this is a very dangerous precedent if we're now going to have federal military personnel on the streets of our cities in the United States. I think there's a problem with that constitutionality in terms of the Constitution, and I think there's a problem with that in terms of just overall relationships between the states and the federal government. So the lawsuit that's been filed will be very interesting going forward.
Larry Schultz.
Yes. To pick up on that a little bit, one of the things that has been proposed, I saw Pam Bondi on television, live television, yesterday or the day before, saying, well, we're going to arrest these homeless people. They're going to jail if they don't get out of the way. And the problem with that nonsense is that it costs about $50,000 a year to house a prisoner in Washington, D.C., whereas you can provide them with housing and a whole lot of other stuff for a whole lot less money than that. So once again, we won't talk about how much this all costs. We'll just slam the deficit because at some point it's going to get extremely expensive. Aside from the fact that a lot of people who are homeless and who are living outside, there probably is a pretty good argument that they violated the trespassing laws. But trespassing is usually a misdemeanor and very seldom carries jail time. So I don't know how you just hold your nose and look past, 2 centuries of legal precedent to put those people in jail. It is a troubling thing to have soldiers, and it's not clear yet whether these will be masked soldiers, the way ICE is masked, and not permitting their identities to be known. But I'm pretty sure most people who joined the National Guard didn't have the idea that they're going to be cleaning up homeless encampments in Washington, D.C. and arresting people on the street. I'm pretty sure that's not what they signed up for. I think this is, I think it is unconstitutional in the way that Joe has described. I think the local D.C. judges may have a word or two to say about this when the litigation commences, as it always does. Thankfully, at least so far, it always does. I believe this is a terrible idea. And the signal that it sends to Americans in general is we're just a few steps away from a complete dictatorship.
Bill Stubblefield.
Yeah, this is a slippery slope. The justification has been by the president that it's because of the heightened crime rate. It depends on the starting point. If you start going back several decades, exactly right. If you started more recent, there has been a distinct decline in crime. Violent crime, 35% decrease in the last couple of so years. Homicide, 32%. Assault with a dangerous weapon, 27%. Robbery, 39%. The trend is in the right direction. But as someone pointed out at breakfast yesterday, it's still very high. It's gone up. Now we're just seeing in certain sections going down. I said slippery slope because there can be a justification that the president has a right to do this in Washington D.C., but he said there's other cities as well. He's mentioned Baltimore quite a bit, but yet if you look at cities with a higher crime rate than that of D.C., Baltimore is not one of them. The cities are St. Louis, New Orleans, and Detroit. These are the cities with a higher crime rate than Washington D.C. No mention yet been made of them, even though you might say on the slippery slope that's possible as well. But does he have the same authority to do in St. Louis, which is a higher crime rate, New Orleans, as he does in Washington D.C.? That I think is going to be the real constitutional question.
Mike Carl.
Well, first of all, I think there's no doubt that the president can do what he's talking about doing and starting to do in Washington, D.C. It is not an independent state it's part of the federal government, or it's under the jurisdiction, I should say, of the federal government. And he has an absolute right and responsibility, I say, to respond to high crime in D.C., which is apparent that we live close enough to know that there's a lot of crime in D.C. and violent crime in D.C. So I'd strongly support both the policy action and the constitutionality of this action in D.C., but to the implication that it's going to lead to take over the law enforcement in other jurisdictions, the states or cities that aren't D.C., including Baltimore. That's a totally different issue, and there's the authority for that doesn't exist per se. As it does in Washington, D.C.
Comes back to you, Michael Heights.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Mike Carl. Washington, D.C. is an anomaly. It's a unique city in the fact that it is a federal city and not a state city, and that the federal government does have authority inside the city limits of Washington, D.C. They've only had home rule since the 1970s, I believe. So they've only had a mayor and city council for that period of time, and up to then it was the president and Congress that sort of ruled over Washington, D.C. And if they believe that it is at a point where it needs some federal intervention, I believe it is constitutional and that they should be doing it. Now, I'm going to push back a little bit on what Larry said.
30 seconds, Michael.
In the fact that I don't know what crime the homeless may have committed, whether they did or didn't, but if there are felonies, we shouldn't not arrest people based on how much it's going to cost to house them. If they've committed a crime, they need to be arrested. I'm not saying the homeless have just by being homeless.
Thank you, Michael. When we come back, Mr. Schultz, Mr. Carl are on the clock, which satisfies my requirement of one Italian being involved in every show that I do besides me. And today I've got two because I've got Joe Ferretti via telephone. Joe, name ends in a vowel. He counts. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning.
Glad
to
you're
count.
unmuted. Yes, glad to count.
My name ends in a vowel.
Silent E. Silent E does not count. It has power, but it's silent. It's a quiet power. It's definitely a quiet power. That would be the voice of Mr. Michael Height. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Longest tenured member of our crew, Michael Carl.
Good morning.
He is a retired admiral, former president of the Berkeley County Commission, Bill Stubblefield.
Rob, great to be here.
And with issue number 4, attorney at law, Lawrence Schultz.
Yeah, we hear news now that Trump has delayed the China tariffs for another 90 days. Is it the fear of causing a recession that's causing these repeated chicken outs, or something else? Please explain, if you can, the answer that you choose. I will go ahead and say that this is one of the things, unlike the last issue we talked about, that's probably not being done as an Epstein distraction. because he was doing this even before they started talking about Epstein. We somehow have decided to take an awful lot of American small businesses who have a struggle on their best days, even a lot of them, and said to them, all your inventory is going to go up in price. Oh, wait, another 90-day pause. Let's see whether it goes up in price or not, because we're negotiating. There will come a point where the on and off nature of this will cause such an economic disruption that a fair number of these businesses and their employees are going to be on the street, and they're not going to have anything. So why on earth is he doing this? And why can it not be set and done, and then we'll see what the fallout is depending on the level of the tariff?
Oh, you may be seeing evidence of that already. The producer price index yesterday was much hotter than they were expecting when it came in. That's the price that the businesses pay for the goods that they use to produce things, and eventually you as a consumer either have to pay that cost or the business eats it, which of course would result in lesser earnings. And if you're a stockholder, that would then affect you in that way. So we'll see. Mr. Ferretti, you go first via telephone.
Well, I was not surprised that China was extended another 90 days before tariffs kick in there. And clearly that's the big enchilada in terms of the nation's economy, since so much flows into the United States from China. And I don't know that anything's going to ever be done. I recall that China in the first Trump administration promised $200 billion of investment in this country in return for some relief from tariffs, and that money's never come in. A lot of this is just kabuki theater for the Trump administration, and I kind of chuckle to myself when people argue, well, we've had these tariffs and prices aren't going up that much. They haven't even begun. And a lot of these tariffs just kicked in last week, and China, again, being the biggest trade partner, has not had any tariffs yet. So the damage has yet to be realized, I think, long term in this economy, and we're just starting to see hints of it now, with, as Rob said, with the report yesterday. So what I'm watching is the court case. Whether this is even legal for the Trump administration to do, because the Constitution, that pesky little document that seems to be a problem sometimes for folks, it explicitly states that under Article 1, Congress has the power to levy tariffs, not the executive. So that case is pending. Watch it as it goes forward in the courts.
Michael Haidt.
Yeah, I would say that the extension, the 90-day extension with China, is because they are actively negotiating right now, and I would believe that the negotiations are probably going somewhat favorable in his eyes, and he wants to give the negotiations more time before any final decision is made on tariffs. And I think it's just a negotiating tactic, and I really don't think a whole lot of it as far as small businesses that get their trinkets from China. I think most of them right now are saying, whatever, I'll deal with it when there is something substantial, when it actually happens. And until then, I'm going to go on and keep buying my trinkets and selling my trinkets from China. So I really don't think this is a big, as big a deal as everybody's making. I will, however, agree with Joe that that pesky document that Donald seems to ignore a lot does say it's Congress who imposes tariffs and not the executive branch.
Mr. Stubblefield.
Yeah, I've lost the bubble on what the tariffs mean and why they're being introduced. There's at least three different categories. One is political. The president got mad at Brazil, the way the former president was being prosecuted, hence a 50% tariff. He got mad in India because of dealing with Russia, hence a 50% tariff. That's for political purposes. He got mad at the countries in Sudan, other parts of Africa, and has imposed a fairly significant tariff to them. He's used political positioning for Japan and Canada that may or may not have some effect. So in other words, the tariffs are across the board. Are they politically driven? Are they just because he's mad at the country, or is it for economic positioning? I don't know. It changes on a fairly regular basis. This is one of the problems that I think with the tariff. They're on again, off again, on again, off again. It's disruptive to our economics. It's driving countries that are not normally allied to being more closely allied. Hence, China and India are developing partnerships they had not had before because of the tariffs and the relationships and the impact of the tariffs. Why is he doing it? In my view, he's doing it because he can do it. And in the president's mind, that's important. He can do it, and he's doing it.
Michael Carl.
Well, I appreciate what Bill just said, because I think if there were serious questions about Trump's legal authority to do these tariffs, they wouldn't have the effect that they have, and I can't imagine that the court, the Supreme Court, ultimately would rule that he's violating or the limits of his authority. So I think it's a negotiating thing, and he's seeing not totally positive, but he's seeing serious, meaningful reactions among the other economic players in the world, and so he's going to keep doing it.
Excuse me, meaningful reaction. I go back to India and China. I'm not sure that's meaningful, but it's not in the direction we want to go.
No, it's a plus and minus in terms of how it affects others and how they react to it.
Back to you, Larry.
Yeah, this is our largest trading partner. I find it a little hard to believe that 100% of everything that we get from China is trinkets. My indication is that we import a lot of machinery parts, other things that, the people who are buying them don't think of them as trinkets. They're not toys or playthings. They are things that they need to run their business or to continue the manufacturing setup that they work themselves into. And they're throwing this ball of uncertainty into their financial future that is going to ultimately, maybe not right away, but ultimately, as these tariffs hit. And of course, by the way, if you're a coffee drinker, that little tiff with Brazil, that's going to make your mornings pretty daggone expensive. Coffee ain't cheap now. And when Brazil's part of our coffee imports gets factored in, you might want to start thinking about Monster energy drinks or something, because the coffee beans are going to be really expensive. That for a lot of people, coffee ain't a trinket either, I guess I would say. But, at what point will the businesses that are suffering under this uncertainty begin to fold, collapse, sell off? And at what point will allies of Trump and family members of Trump be able to pick up their stock really cheap while these negotiations are going on? And then suddenly it just goes away and we find out that all we did was manipulate this to change the ownership of these companies so that Trump's friends and allies and family can make a bunch of money. I just think this is a ridiculous way to threaten the ongoing quality of the U.S. economy.
According to a story released by the BBC this month, the June tariff revenues, which I presume are the latest ones they have information for, totaled $28 billion. That's triple the monthly revenues seen in June of 2024. So there are tariffs being collected. and that's the latest. No idea on July just yet. All right, issue number 5. Michael Carr, you are up to the plate.
Okay, this is a question for everyone. Are the Democrats being hypocrites when they accuse the Republicans of gerrymandering in Texas?
Republicans? I'm sorry, are Democrats hypocrites because of potential gerrymandering accusations in Texas?
Right.
All right, very good. Bill, you have the biggest grin on your face, so you're going to go first.
Yeah. Mike, this can be argued from each side of the plate very easily and very legitimately. There's been a lot of gerrymandering on both parties. It's frequently mentioned that the Democrats gerrymandered Maryland, and the consequences have been felt. Gerrymandering has been a real game for quite a while, but my position is it became weaponized. Gerrymandering became weaponized as a political tool, political vehicle, with Tom DeLay in Texas in the early 1990s. He saw gerrymandering as a way to take full advantage of the political system. Now, since then, others have used it. So I don't say you can, looking at one particular state, yes, they were hypocrites. From another state, the other party was a hypocrite. Both of them have used gerrymandering, and they both used it to their advantage. But I'll come back. In my eyes, the devil that started all this to a political purposes was Tom DeLay in Texas in the early 1990s.
The spat going on between the California and Texas governors now is pretty interesting. The latest comments with California potentially trying to gerrymander to pick up an additional 5 Democratic seats to cancel out Texas's 5 Republican seats. The Texas governor said, well, then we'll just do 10. We'll do 10. And he said the Democrats are at a disadvantage because they've been gerrymandering so long they're out of districts to gerrymander. So the rhetoric continues here. So, Larry, go right ahead.
Yeah, there were a number of states, including California, who turned their district drawing over to independent boards. And that's causing a problem for Gavin Newsom now, because in order to change the number of Democrats going to the House from California, he's going to first need to win a statewide referendum to undo that previous thing. Now, we can say that for many years, Democrats gerrymandered, and of course they did, and this goes back to before the Civil War, when perhaps it was a little more clear exactly what the reason was why they were gerrymandering. But we can say that. But some of these states, New York is another one, I believe, have passed statewide referendums to turn this over to a bipartisan independent council that picks the map lines. And so when we say that this has always been the case, it hasn't, because in the states that passed an independent board's choice of the lines of the districts, they didn't have that available to them for a long time. So I don't have a great deal of admiration for the governor of Texas. He's clearly a toady. He got a phone call saying, this is what I want you to do. And he said, okay. And, plain and simple. But there ought to be a way for the federal legislature to pass a law that simply says you get to redistrict once every 10 years. And that's it. We're in the middle of the cycle right here. It's not, there hasn't been a recent census. And so, that's also disturbing. Other states have done it, but not states that have I don't think states that have an independent district line drawing group have done that. So there's been a move to reject gerrymandering because, at least in part, of its racial effect on districts. Hopefully we can become a better country and all the states will cut this out.
Or there's another solution to it, rank order voting.
Ranked choice.
ranked choice for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Joe?
Well, two things. One, there's a pending U.S. Supreme Court case coming out of Louisiana in a redistricting matter, and it's going to be interesting. The last vestiges of the Voting Rights Act may be abrogated by the U.S. Supreme Court because in Louisiana they redistricted in a way that assured African American representation in Congress by creating what's called majority-minority districts. And I think the Supreme Court is likely to take a dim view of that, and it may have ripple effect across the country here when the Supreme Court reconvenes in October. But in Texas, look, it's just a case of making a bad situation worse. Redistricting as a whole is just it's reached a point where, with the use of computers and everything else, it's become very precise, and to the detriment of democratic principles, in my mind. And what's going on in Texas, routinely redistricting was tied to the census. Every 10 years, states would go about redrawing their maps. But Texas has now, pushed the envelope further, doing it mid-cycle. And again, I think it's just a case of making a bad situation all the worse. And now we've got other states considering doing it too. You wonder where it's going to end.
Mr. Height.
Yeah, so Mike's question was, are the Dems hypocrites for doing this? And the answer is yes, but they are hypocrites. And the reason they're hypocrites is not because of the gerrymandering, because Larry's right. Both sides do that, been doing it for years and years and years. They're hypocrites because of what Joe said, that this is normally done in the census year, not midterm. And Democrats have done gerrymandering, redistricting in the middle of midterms in the past, and now it's happened. And now that the Republicans are doing a Republican state is doing it, that's where the hypocrisy comes from. Now, I have a problem with it, and I agree with you. The federal Congress needs to enact a law that says you can only do it right after a census, once every 10 years, when you know that the population has changed significantly in an area, and we need to leave it at that, and take this nonsense, this political nonsense, away from both sides. As it relates to California trying to counteract what Texas is doing, I'm glad to see that. I hope they do. People are leaving California in droves. Businesses, individuals, they'll be so daggone far down in individuals, they'll just lose those seats anyway. So please, Gavin Newsom, please do that. I'm all in favor of it.
Mike, I'm curious though. You say the other states have done mid-decadal readjustments.
Yes,
well.
I did some research on that, and yes,
Okay.
there has been some instances in the past where Democrats in certain states have done that mid-cycle, as Joe would say, and not during the census. Now, but you can say that the Republicans are hypocrites too, because they clutched their pearls and wrung their hands when it was done and said this is not fair, this should not be done, and now here they are doing it because Donald Trump says I need 5 more seats. So they're just as big a hypocrites.
Comes back to you, Michael Carl.
Well, you can't top the irony or hypocrisy of the fact that the Democratic legislators in Texas that bailed out went to Illinois, which is possibly the most radically gerrymandered state in America, and just to emphasize the extreme effect of it.
Good discussion. Poor Elbridge Thomas Jerry. The guy did so many good things in his life, and this is what he's remembered for. If it wasn't for this man and 2 others, we may not have a Bill of Rights. He held out, one of 3 people to attend the Constitutional Convention and not sign the Constitution because he insisted there be a Bill of Rights. And he got elected to Congress and made sure that the Bill of Rights was passed. He was a vice president to James Madison. And the only thing we remember him for? Gerrymandering, which ranks slightly somewhere among pedophilia in the way Americans view people when they talk
funny?
about those terms. Right?
Isn't that odd?
Yeah, right? So
And gerrymandering is not just always about left and right and conservatives and liberals. It's also about individuals sometimes, and you get certain individuals get drawn out of districts from time to
Well,
time.
it's
Indeed.
about skin tone sometimes,
Well,
without regard.
it's happened
Yeah.
here. We should gerrymander districts so there's an equal distribution of voters. We'll get less radical political elections and more balanced districts. We are back with Final Thoughts, 8 seconds apiece next. Final Thoughts, 8 seconds apiece. Joe Ferretti, go.
What RFK Jr. is doing to the FDA and the CDC is the iceberg dead ahead.
Larry Schultz.
Let's hope the Pirates can salvage something out of this season.
Sell the team, Bob. Sell the team, Bob. Bill Stubblefield.
I echo what Joe Ferretti says, but I'm thinking about the basic research. We're decimating our basic research. In this
Michael Carl.
As a Cards fan, all I care about now is what the Mets and Reds do.
Mr. Height.
Summer's over. School buses are going to be out there. Keep an eye out for the kiddies.
Dave Ramsey Show's coming up next. This is Talk Radio, WRNR Martinsburg and TV 10. We'll talk to you again in 70 short hours.
I don't care. It's fine.